Hi! I'm in the same exact place and clothes as last week because I recorded two at once because I don't know when my family is going to be away this long ever, so I'm going to use it to the best of my abilities, which just means I'm going to hit record again, which is something. Who fucking cares? Let's go. In high school, we had a maths teacher, as most people do. I don't know if anonymity is an issue anymore, but I don't know, people might not be able to spell it. Who's gonna look? Who's gonna care? Whatever. His name was Mr. Chekon, and he taught me in Year 7 maths, I believe. Well, he taught a bunch of people in Year 7. Really, my entire year level. In Year 7, he taught maths. We're getting away from the subject for one semester. There's a reason behind that. So, Mr. Chekon was this kind of a young guy, looked like he'd just come out of university. We later found out he had just come out from university to come teach, this tiny little town. He's gonna, breathe in the fresh air and, teach the next generation of this old farm town to be great mathematicians. Because you have dreams when you're 20. Fuck knows. You have dreams and hopes of making the world a better place. And sometimes you get Swift Creek Secondary College's Year 7 students, and that kind of goes to shit. The issue that we had with Mr. Chekon was that he wasn't a good teacher. Not in the sense that he couldn't teach us anything, but that he did it in questionable ways, at least to us. It was just little things that, he didn't respect the order of when kids put their hands up to get their questions answered. We, even as children, understood that the world has order. When a kid puts their hand up, he gets talked to before some kid who puts their hand up after him. That's just how it worked. Mr. Chekon did not respect this. He had a chaotic way of moving about the room. He went to his will, or to the nearest person. He worked on a spatial scale rather than a logical, statistical scale. And when we tried to point him out, oh hey sir, can you answer this person first? They had a question first. And from memory, he answered along the lines of, don't tell me how to do my job, or I'm doing this how I need to do it. And come to think of it, I think his most common response was just get back to your work. We can't, Mr. Chekon. We don't know how. And we're trying to ask you how, but you're not answering. You have an issue. Respond. But his responses were shit, and so we called him shit, and that's when everything started to go to hell. Because of his falling short, it wasn't really discussed amongst the students, but we kind of decided that he had to go. It was kind of a weird phenomenon when just the whole class decided that we were fucking done with this guy's bullshit and worked together to create an absolutely horrendous environment for a teacher to work in. People started putting their hands up all over the place, whether we needed help or not. I know this because we made jokes about it afterwards. And when Mr. Chekon failed to answer these possibly non-existent questions, we would call out, "Sir, over here, I need help. Go back and do your work." "But I was first." "That's right, she was first. Go back and do your work, both of you." And it kind of moved on from this civil disobedience to less civil disobedience. We would talk out of turn. We stopped caring about the work entirely. We made jokes in class. Mr. Chekon was not a happy camper. But, that was the point. He kept, trying to tell us not to do things, and we kept doing the things, which was a great time, let me tell you. It is so fun to go against the people in charge. It's amazing. But then Mr. Chekon fought back. He fought back against the students who were fighting against him. And it would have been an interesting little war situation we had going, except he had one move, and it was put everyone in detention for recess. It was 5-10 minutes of recess. It wasn't even singled out. We were just the whole class is in detention. We're why? That was the next big thing that we had a problem with. He punished the whole instead of the few. And I don't know if it was some bullshit, get the students to fight each other because these people are getting everyone else in trouble. That's not how people work. Especially not people who are already hyped up on injustice. Or at least not 13-year-old kids who have a taste for anarchy and want more. Really, all Mr. Chekon was doing was giving us the taste for blood. So it kept on happening. We kept misbehaving in class. We kept getting detentions. It was a vicious back and forth. We weren't learning. This was a difficult thing. I will accept that at that point, if we had just laid back and taken it, we probably would have learned something over that year. But it was too late. We were in this fight. We had to keep going. We had to see it to the bitter end. And eventually the end came. Mr. Chekon did not return for the second term. we had a different maths teacher for the rest of our high school lives, and she was lovely. She answered our questions, she was polite, she was nice, and she was bloody smart. Like, she got our shit together. But Mr. Chacon was gone. And to my memory, we never really got a concrete answer as to where he had gone. He had disappeared from this small farm town over the holidays, and the last thing I remember about that whole scenario was that there was a rumor going around that he was working in a tie factory in Japan. And even if that isn't true, it's still one of the funniest memories I have that our maths class did indeed make a difference in this little civil war thing we had going down, in that we had a substandard teacher and we drove him the fuck out of town to the point where at least I never heard from him again. So that's the thing. So, a lesson to people thinking of going to secondary education: don't underestimate teenagers, because they fucking brutal. They are awful, awful entities, and they will capitalize on your failure. But you know, I guess that's the thing with teaching. Like, you are there to enrich this class's life. You're there to make their lives better. Why not work with them, then against them or for them? I don't know shit about teaching, but from this little escapade from my youth, I can imagine that there's probably a bit of give and take involved, otherwise you end up disappearing from their lives. And that's a pity, because this new maths teacher, I still remember her. Her name was Mrs. Neville, and she was great. But Mr. Chacon, like, he's a story time. He's a joke. So whether he really is working in a tie factory in Japan, that's what he is to us. And while I do think it was probably a bit over the top, I do cherish that little taste of anarchy, that feeling of rebelling against those in power who are doing you wrong, which in this day and age probably isn't a bad thing anymore. Thank you and good night. He worked on a spatial scale rather than a logical, statistical scale, which is annoying because he taught maths, not geometry. Geometry is a branch of maths, but it was not what we were learning at the time, and so that doesn't count. I'm a lawyer.